committee meeting. Are there any, well, we'll note that Councillor Lang is not present this evening. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? There being none, can I have a mover and seconder, please, for the adoption of the agenda? Councillor Broom, Councillor Jacob, all in favor? Actually, before that, are there any changes or deletions? All in favor? Carried. There's no delegations. Can I have a mover and seconder, please, for the adoption of the March 9th, almost said 19th, sorry, March 9th Planning Advisory Committee? Mayor Peckett, Councillor Jacob, the issues or concerns? All in favor of receiving his information? Carried. Mover and seconder, please, for item 7.1, Tartan Homes update. Councillor Jacob, Mayor Peckett. Ooh, this is hard on the phone. Any comments or questions on the submission here? I assume, Lindsay, that we're receiving, oh, Mayor Peckett?
Thank you, Chair. Something's gone with my other computer. I can't bring it up on my screen, but I've read it a couple of days ago. I understand this is a section of land for the development off of White Lake Road, down in by the trailer park area, which Tartan at one time were trying to get water and sewer for a 5-acre chunk or 6-acre chunk to add on to their subdivision within the town of Arnprior. But I see they've gone and changed it into having, I believe, 3 different fairly large lots and a couple of these lots on the water. I think this was a good decision by Tartan to go this way, and benefits the township of McNabb-Braeside in that there will be some buildings in that area on the waterfront. So I'm happy to see that they've revised their plan to accommodate that. Thank you.
Excellent, sir. Thank you. Any other comments from members of the committee? Bruce, anything from a planning concern? I don't believe there is, but I'd like to offer you the opportunity to comment.
Sure, it is very preliminary at this time. And this is many years out, so it's not anything that's going to come anytime soon, but they did have a sort of concept. I already did provide some comments to them as well about adjusting the road that's on the Arnprior portion a little bit, I guess, north, for lack of better direction, away from the river a little bit. And that would allow the private road that's coming off of that cul-de-sac onto the McNabb-Braeside portion to be at the top end of the property, so that any future, they would become essentially waterfront lots, as opposed to having people build on the far side of the road and then having to cross through it to access the water. Trying to get the private road up to the very far end of the lot, so that people could, they become waterfront lots, and I think more desirable for both future residents and probably more profitable for Tartan Homes at the end of the day as well. But again, it's very preliminary, and I'm sure plans will change as the years progress.
Excellent. Thanks very much. So with that, then I guess we're receiving this as information, Lindsay. All in favor of receiving his information? Carried. Mover and seconder, please, for 8.1 and 8.2 reports. Councillor Broom, Councillor Jacob. Questions, concerns, comments with 8.1 Building Septic Department report? All in favor of receiving this information? Carried. Comments, questions, concerns on Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes from February 8th. All right, then, all in favor of receiving both of it as information? Carried. A mover and seconder, please, for item 9.1, County of Renfrew official plan amendment. Councillor Broom, Mayor Peckett. Boy, this was a long document, 235 pages. So questions, comments, and or concerns? Or did we want a Cole's Notes version from Mr. Halworth? Yes, please. All right, Mr. Halworth. What are the changes, sir?
Well, I'll do my best to be brief. So there aren't a lot of significant ones. We had a couple of, sorry, there's two significant ones, and then everything else is sort of minor compared to the last version. So you've already seen version 1 of the draft, and we're now circulating version 2 for comments based on the input that we'd received from essentially the municipal circulation. So it went out to all the municipalities for draft 1 for comments, and then this is sort of going back out for phase 2. So county councils authorized this circulation going, and it also is going out to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing for comments. So the two key changes I think they'll be most interested are the policy around the 1 kilometer from a serviced area, where there was a lot of discussion with council, I believe, previously on the previous draft about that policy, and McNabb Braeside had passed a resolution that they did not support the inclusion of that 1 kilometer policy. So that policy has been removed from this draft. So if you're looking at the draft, that policy has been removed. And the second significant change is around deer yards and agricultural mapping. So they're both mapping changes. So the document has reverted back to how it was originally adopted as official plan amendment 25. So I'm going to do a quick little history lesson. County of Renfrew adopted official plan amendment 25 as a big update to the plan. That plan went off to the province, and when the province approved it, they came back with a lot of modifications, and that was where a lot of these concerns came from. So the mapping that you'll see in this version for agriculture and deer yards is reverting back to how it was originally adopted and approved by the County of Renfrew before the ministry was involved. So those are sort of the three big ones: the mapping changes for agriculture, deer yards, and the removal of the policy about development around 1 kilometer of serviced areas. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Any comments or questions, Mayor Peckett?
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to thank Bruce and his staff at the county for taking not just McNabb Brayside's concerns, but several other communities' concerns about the draft that was sent back to us from the provincial government with a lot of things that in not only my estimation, but a lot of other county councillors put a damper on growth and expansion within Renfrew County. And Bruce and Charles Cheeseman and his staff listened and come up with this new draft to go back to the province. And hopefully it will be approved as it is, so that Renfrew County has the opportunity to enjoy growth, which is just seems to be coming in droves these days throughout the county, and it's something that has been sadly needed in the county for many, many years. So I appreciate all the work that Bruce and the staff has done, and I also appreciate the support from McNabb Council with the resolution that was drafted for the townships part in the policy. I think it is now something that we can, throughout the county, can live with, and if hopefully it gets approved by the province. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Any other comments? Again, Lizzie, just for clarification, we're receiving his information at this point? Yes, thank you. Okay, all those in favor of receiving his information? Carried. All right, on to 11.1, application of minor variance, Karen Haybecker. Mover and seconder, please. Mayor Peckett, Councillor Broom. Anything to add, Bruce, beyond what's in your planning report here?
No, Mr. Chair, thank you. I don't have anything additional to add. This is a minor variance. So there's a couple of different powers that the Committee of Adjustment has. One is to approve minor variances to, like, for example, setbacks. So if someone wanted to change a setback from like 3 meters down to 2 meters, they could do that through a minor variance in certain circumstances. The other power is sort of less often used, and that's what this one is for, is called for an expansion to a legal non-conforming use. So this is where there's a use that is existing, that's already been in place before the bylaw comes into effect, and the bylaw essentially makes that use, it would not permit that use today. So it's called a legal non-conforming. It's also known as the vernacular with the grandfathering. So this is a use that existed before the zoning bylaw came into force. And this is one of the powers that the committee has, is to authorize minor variances to allow the expansion of these legal non-conforming uses. And as you can see in my planning report, we recommended that the application be approved. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, sir. Any comments or questions? Mr. Broom?
I just want to say thank you to Bruce, staff, and also to Karen and Gary. Just a little variant like that seems like it's a long process whenever you don't have whenever Karen and Gary first started, they thought it was quite a big process for what they're doing. So I'm really glad to see that everybody banded together and was able to get this to the point that they might be able to do what they want to do this summer, which is great.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or concerns, questions from council? All in favor of the recommendation? Carried. Mover and seconder, please, for 11.2, application for consent, Rick and Nancy Armishaw. Councillor Jacob, Councillor Broom. Bruce, anything to add on this one?
Sure, I can add some thoughts on this one as well. So this is a lot addition application. So these lands are adjacent to the Braeburn Estates plan of subdivision. This application is proposing to take lands from the Rick and Nancy Armishaw property, which is just on the opposite side of the new road. I think it's called Shady Maple Road off the top of my head. So right now, Shady Maple Road is we call it a single loaded road. There's only lots coming off one side of the road, and those are the lots that come down onto the Madawaska River. What this lot addition will do is it's sort of accumulating the land in enough land that it will allow her to come back with a future plan of subdivision application and add hopefully more lots onto that road and make it a double loaded road. So to have lots on both sides, both on the river side and on the, well, I guess we'll call it the east side of the road. And so this is just, again, assembling the land. This is not the application to actually create the lots. This is not, there's no new lots being created at this time. It's just a land assembly process, taking the land from the Armishaw land, adding it on to lands that are currently owned by Braeburn Estates, the development company. And to allow those future lots to be created, there will be a further big public process in making sure that those lands can be appropriately developed, especially given the stormwater constraints and the slope constraints as well in that area. So there will be future review for sure, but at this time, there's no new lots being created. It's just that lot addition. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks very much. Comments or questions, concerns from the members of the committee? All in favor of the recommendation? Carried. Mover and seconder, please, for 11.3, application of consent, Stephen Kanopik. Sorry. Councillor Jacob, Councillor Broom. Once again, Bruce, anything to add to this?
Nope, not in addition to my planning report. I think the recommendation is there to approve the lot subject to a draft survey, just confirming some of the setbacks and favorable comments from a couple agencies, but I have no further comments.
Excellent. Questions, comments, concerns from the members of the committee? Mr. Peckett?
Just the correct pronunciation, I believe, the name is Kanopik.
Thank you very much, sir. Anything else? All in favor of the recommendation? Carried. Apologies to the Kanopik family. Mover and seconder, please, for 11.4, consent application for consent, Richard Robertson. Councillor Broom. Mayor Peckett. Mr. Howarth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, again. It's been a busy month.
That's a good sign.
A good sign for sure. So again, this is another new lot that's being proposed. Very insignificant concerns. There's just one mild, like I wouldn't call it, like a forest fire risk, which is identified, which covers half of Renfrew County. So it's nothing that we're not used to. So the recommendation is that again, the application be approved, subject to a registered plan survey, and also that there's a requirement for a wildfire risk assessment plan. And those are very standard, and it doesn't require an expert to do it. It's something that the landowner can do themselves. There's a M&R guideline that has been provided, and they just go through sort of a checklist saying, as a property owner, if I do X, Y, and Z, it decreases my risk or to have property damage as a result of a wildfire. So there's fully expect that that's a reasonable condition and that there shouldn't be any concerns with that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, concerns from members of the committee? All in favor of the recommendation? Carried. Mover and seconder, please, for 12.1, a plan of subdivision, Hogan Heights. Councillor Broom, Councillor Jacob. Comments or questions from members of the committee on this one? Councillor Broom?
So I've been asked to just ask a few questions to ensure the proper studies are done with respect to, you and I have already talked about it, Bruce, about water quality and that. For those of you that don't know, my laneway is right at lot 1, and the Taylors next door would be between 31 and 30. So I guess the biggest question is water quality and water quantity. With adding 41 more lots, we just want to ensure that we're going to end up with water after this. And I was, do you want me to give all my questions?
Yeah,
or
sure.
do you want to go one at a time? Or so water was the biggest one. The next one, I believe, was the I lost my list. Just give me one sec. if somebody else has questions, my computer just crashed, and that's where I had them all.
While Mr. Brown was trying to solve his technical issues, anybody else have any questions or concerns on this one? Mayor Peckett?
Thank you, Chair. Just speaking about the water quality and stuff to Bruce. Before subdivisions isn't there geotechnical studies and everything done to make sure that there is potable water and enough water or supply water to accommodate the number of residents before it's started?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, absolutely. So there are a number of studies that were submitted with this application. So the application has been deemed complete, and there'll be a notice of that application that gets circulated and posted on the property. And there will be a future public meeting to be held as well. So the public will have time to provide their comments. And if they would like to review any of the reports themselves or seeing them, we can provide them access to those reports as well if they would like to see them. So with the application, there was a planning rationale study. There was an environmental impact study looking at the impacts on the environment and any natural habitat and the creek that sort of it backs onto. There was a preliminary geotechnical study that mainly looks at soils and ground conditions, whether or not the lands are suitable for development. A lot of the McNabb site has slip clays, for example, or elita clays, which can offer a construction hazard. So it looks at making sure the soils are appropriate. There's a preliminary stormwater management report, which looks at how the stormwater from rainwater can be directed and addressed in the site. Again, I want to just emphasize, so this is the stormwater management plan is always a preliminary one because subdivisions do tend to evolve even after draft approval. And so one of the conditions between draft approval and final approval is having an actual engineered stormwater management plan, which is different from this sort of preliminary one. So this current one doesn't have all of the detailed engineering design inputs into it at this time, because that's very expensive for the developer to do. So they wait until they get draft approval to make sure that they essentially are guaranteed to go forward with their development. Then they put the money into doing the actual detailed design about how deep the ditches has to be or how big the storage pond will have to be. So those calculations are done at that time. Right now, they just have to prove in concept that stormwater can be adequately managed. And then the last one, to address Councillor Broom's question, is a hydrogeological assessment. And this is the one that looks at both making sure that the new lots have potable water supply, which includes quantity, quality, and also looks at adjacent properties, making sure that neighboring properties will not be negatively affected by additional residents coming online, that the aquifer below can handle it. So it does all of those things. It also looks at the impact of septic systems in the area, making sure that the addition of X number of septic systems isn't going to contaminate either groundwater just going into the natural environment or groundwater that eventually people may end up drinking. So the hydrogeological study assessment looks at all those things, and there are guidelines that the Ministry of Environment have released that these hydrogeological studies are required to follow. And that study has also been sent off to the county peer reviewer. So the study will be peer reviewed by the county, by KBM Engineering, and to make sure that they followed all the appropriate guidelines and that they agree with the findings of that study. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Bruce. Scott?
Yeah, I'm back up. So one of the questions is that there is seems to be a different owner building this one, and it seems to be an individual. How does that work, like compared to say the company that just built the last phase? Are they held to the in case something does go wrong? how, does that even matter at this time? And another one was natural gas and Bell 5. I know we can't dictate that, but is there any chance of residents, the township helping residents achieve natural gas and Bell down the road? Like as it is right now, I can throw a rock and hit where it's bound up in the ditch, but they've been telling us for 2 years it's coming and it's not coming. So we're just trying to, there's a couple of us that just have that question as well. And that pretty much sums up the questions I have.
Okay, thank you. Bruce, might you take number 1 on that one?
Sure. So I believe that was the applicant or the developer. So the developer oftentimes is not necessarily the builder. So the developer could just take the lands through the process of creating the lots and then sell the development as a finished product to a builder or build the houses themselves. It's essentially up to them. But to ensure that the township interests are protected, for example, like the infrastructure that's eventually going to be assumed by the municipality, whether it's new roads or stormwater management, through the subdivision agreement, securities are taken and usually in the amount of 100% to make sure that what the developer is required to construct is constructed to a standard that's acceptable to the municipality. And then ultimately those securities are held in place for a period of time until the township is satisfied that the infrastructure was built correctly and adequately before those securities will be released. So the township does have protection to make sure that whatever is going to be ultimately constructed on the property will be to the township satisfaction.
Thank you very much, sir. And then Scott, I think for items number 2 and 3 with respect to natural gas and Bell, I would assume it's just a matter of time for the residents in that area. Bell and Enbridge would make that decision based on their ability to profit from it. And so with the influx of housing in the area, I would expect it wouldn't be too far along. But of course, it'd be a business decision for those 2 enterprises. Any other comments or questions from members of the committee? Councillor Jacob?
Just a question through you, Chair, to Mr. Howarth. In terms of the process-based, so this is just the first step in the process where council's receiving the information for a preliminary comment, and then as the process continues, there will be additional opportunities to review the project, as well as a public input session, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So I'm assuming, sorry, Mr. Chair.
No, it's good.
Okay, that in the near future, actually, the public meeting will be held for the subdivision. The notice should go out fairly soon. So it has been deemed complete right now. We're not even actually asking for comments at this time from council. It's just for information only. So, and that you're aware that the subdivision has been submitted in case you do get some calls or questions from residents. If they see the sign being posted on the property saying new subdivision's coming, that you're aware that is coming. There will be that opportunity for public input and changes potentially based on that input as well. So if there's significant concerns or it needs a redesign, there's still ample opportunity. This is very early in the process. The next stage after the public process would be draft approval. If council supports the application and wants this development to move forward, then it gets draft approved subject to conditions. For example, having a detailed stormwater management plan or having those engineered plans for how the road is going to be constructed and securities. So then those become conditions of draft approval, and the developer essentially has 3 years to go step by step to meet his conditions before he gets final approval. So yes, this is step 1, public input. We'll be seeking that very shortly, though notices will be mailed out and a public meeting will be held in the future.
Thanks very much. Anything further from the members of the committee? All in favor of receiving his information then? Carried. Sorry, just get my phone off lock here. Mover and seconder, please, for new business 14.1, Renwick Farrell. Councillor Jacob. Councillor Broom. Comments or questions? Sorry, I was reading. I didn't look at the screen. I assume that silence is a no for this one. Mayor Peckett, sorry.
Thank you, Chair, but there is a request from staff for direction as how they wish to proceed. So I think there needs to be some sort of discussion on how the township wishes to proceed with this request.
Okay. So I'm just trying to read through it here again. Lindsay or Ange, would you care to comment on this? Or pretty much everything that's highlighted in here is something that you would like to have discussed?
Yeah, pretty well. The topics that are highlighted are the important ones to discuss, I suppose.
Okay, of which there are numerous. Sorry, I'm just reading through it again here. So this appears to me like it's something that we have a water service agreement that is being repurposed, I'll say, for this lot addition. I'm just wondering from staff then, is this something different than we've seen in the past without asking the obvious? Or is this our document or is this the town's document? Excuse me.
Oh, go ahead. Which document, like the agreement is between the town and us.
Yeah.
Like the letter that we attached went to the town of Arnprior. As far as we are aware, they never took it to their council. Their staff just sent it to us. So we're just giving it to you guys to see what you want to do, because based on the agreement, it shouldn't be added as far as we are aware, unless there's been changes to the infrastructure in the town. However, that's up to council to.
So the next course of action then is to hear from the town then on what they would.
They want us to ask them to add the property back on if we want to.
Councillor Jacobs, sorry, I see you had your hand up there.
It appears in 4.01 that it is possible to add a new connection, provided mutual agreement. But my assumption is that staff are seeking whether the township is comfortable incurring the costs associated with the new connections. Given that the water meters, as well as the connection itself, any damages are the responsibility of the township under the agreement. Personally, I would be comfortable with it, particularly given taking a look at the letter from the resident that the services had been provided to that property in the past. I think the extension would be warranted in that case, given its proximity to the town of Arnfire. But it may be something for us to look at what potential we have to recoup those costs potentially from the property owner. I'm not sure where that, I don't see any wording in the agreement regarding that kind of an arrangement, but perhaps that's something to explore.
So Angela might be able to explain better when, or Mayor Peckett, when there was the last time the house for services to that site. Because I'm not sure.
Mayor Peckett?
Thank you, Chair. There hasn't been service to that lot for, I believe, at least around 40 years, if not longer. If the township agrees to this, then I'll step back a bit. First of all, this agreement was made many years ago. For whatever reason, I don't know why. I guess because of the proximity of all the residences, and perhaps there wasn't a potable water available through a well system. But that's a long time ago that happened, you know, maybe longer than 40 years, because I believe the building that was there burned some 40 years ago. So there hasn't been a service there for that length of time. I see the agreement going forward is completely the cost of doing everything is in the hands of McNabb Braeside taxpayers. And to me, it would be like the township going out and paying for a well and a septic system on somebody else's property. And this lot apparently is large enough to have a well and septic. It's a fairly large lot. So I don't see why the township would pay for all this reconnection. And then I know that we're on the hook with the current agreement for any repairs, any damages, the water meter. If the owner doesn't pay, the township's got to pay. And there's no way for the township to recover these costs as the agreement and everything sits currently. So either we're going to have to revisit the agreement or look at the agreement to get some way to save the taxpayers of all over the township for basically supplying water to a few residences, water and sewer to a few residences. So at this point, and unless somebody can come up with a better idea, I think we need to revisit the agreement to find some way to protect the township for costs before I would even consider hooking up, rehooking up the sewer and water line to that lot. But certainly feel that well and septic is appropriate for that particular lot, the size of the lot in that location. Thank you.
Lindsay?
So just for information, Mr. Renwick did have a company go out and put a camera in the pipes and indicated that the company indicated that it was in good working order, because we were concerned that because it hadn't had anything go through it in so long that it might not be good. So that company is indicating that it is okay. Just for your information, the video came in after the meeting was published already, so that's why you don't have it.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Peckett?
Is that company prepared to financially support that if there is problems, that they will foot the bill to hook up the sewer and water or replace anything, and also pay for the meter and stuff? Thank you.
I would guess no.
Any other comments? Sorry, Councillor Broom, I'm trying to read and look at the screen at the same time here.
Not a problem. Sorry for being kicked out. Our Wi-Fi dropped again. Hence why we need some better Wi-Fi in this area. My biggest thing is if there's potable water on the lot, then this should be, shouldn't even be an issue. If they haven't had town services for over 40 years on that lot, so long as there's potable water, I can't see why the township should have to foot the full bill whenever, each one of us have to put in our own well septic. If we could find a different payment structure or, work with Mr. Renwick, like you were saying, to try to find a better resolve, but for every house to be charged X number of dollars throughout the township to do enable this, one, possibly two properties, city services, I don't think it's doable, in my opinion.
Thank you. Any other comments? Bruce, have you seen this elsewhere in the county?
There are other shared agreements, but typically I've not been involved in them. So I don't have a lot of expertise, unfortunately, that I can offer you, because they are typically done more on an engineering level as opposed to through the public works department rather than through the planning department. So unfortunately, I don't have too much advice that I can offer you at this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Typically, we have public questions after all deliberations have taken place, but I understand that Mr. Renwick is on the line. So with the blessing of the committee, I'd like to hear Mr. Renwick's comments, because I understand he has his hand up. If everybody's okay with that, rather than receiving his information saying yay or no, before we do so, if everybody's okay with it, I wouldn't mind hearing from Mr. Renwick. Sorry, Lindsay.
So just to clarify, we're just looking for comments to go to council next week, not a decision tonight.
Okay, thank you very much for the clarification. Mr. Renwick, sir.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, committee. I'm just like a few things to add. The services, when I first bought the lot, we contacted the town of Arnprior to ask them about this possibility, because I currently live in the house across the road, and we have services, and we're part of this agreement, and we pay the monthly utility bills directly to the town of Arnprior. And they so he said he wasn't sure because of the agreement, it'd have to be added back on to the lot that was actually burnt in 1985. We purchased a lot and we were doing some tree clearing and getting a lot prepped to get ready to build. And we discovered that there is the hydrant shut off, and we dug further and we actually found the sewer line that is still on the property. And they are significantly, and they're like 10 feet inside the property line on the lot line. And we contacted the town and specifically Ryan Wall, asking him to come out and take a look. So him and Steve McLean came out and take a look, and they started the process of looking into us being able to hook back up to the town sewer and water. And he was looking for the bylaws to actually just add the lot back on, as it was just taken off because there was no one residing on the property. This has taken several months, and it has become, now we're just waiting on the building permit, but it's being held up by the sewer and the water issue. Now, there are a few other concerns that I have, that if, for example, I understand the concerns that the people have about the taxpayers paying for the sewer and the water hookup to one house, but being it's already on my property, there'd be no cost added to the taxpayers because it's from the property line in, is the homeowner's responsibility. And plus the meter cost, is not a significant cost and can easily be absorbed by myself and my significant partner, Jennifer. And the other thing is, if we don't hook up to the services, these services will need to be abandoned and removed from the property. Because when we dug it up, we found they were not capped properly, they were not protected, and they were open-ended with the possibility of sewage and water leaking onto the property. And one other thing we did find too is the hydrant was still on. We actually shut the hydrant off, the water was still flowing onto the property. I don't know how long that had been happening, but we actually shut the water off that was still coming onto the property. I have spoken to Mr. Wall. He emailed me today and he did say this is on the agenda for the next council in Armprior. So he pending what the committee suggests, it is on their council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments from the members of the committee? Okay, so the recommendation, sir, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry, but we still need to give direction to staff as to what we want them to do for the next council meeting or do with this project.
Yeah, I was just rereading the recommendation that the request to the town of Arnprior from Renwick Farrell be accepted as information as submitted and circulated, and further that the planning advisory committee gives staff direction to how they wish to proceed. Just a point of clarification, Lindsay, can the committee give staff direction, or does it have to go through the next official meeting of council before that direction can be given?
No, you can give us direction as to how you would like us to proceed on Tuesday, like which direction we should write a recommendation in.
Okay. Okay, so any thoughts from the committee on that before I provide my own? Councillor Broom?
I'd like to see that we have a total, so we know what kind of dollar figure we're looking at. And from what sorry, I got kicked out again. I did catch, I believe, the majority of Mr. Renwick. So what I got is, it's within his property line, so he would be footing the bill, which again is no cost to the taxpayer. So at this time, it would be to get a total from the just to clarify with Arnprior to make sure that it is as easy as that it would the onus would be on the developer and not the township.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Jacob?
I agree with Councillor Broom's recommendation. I think it's something that council should consider with a positive recommendation with the requested information regarding the financial piece and just a confirmation regarding the property line division there, that things after the property line, in this case, in the township, would be the property owner's responsibility, not the township's.
Okay, so if I can just summarize, then what we're really looking for staff to do is clarify costs associated with this project, either by the township or the property owner, the liabilities associated with each of the three parties, and the risks associated to either ourselves or the property owner, correct? You good with that, Lindsay? Okay, then all in favor of receiving his information and the staff direction requested? Carried. Okay, Mr. Renwick, I don't know if there's anybody else on the call, Lindsay, but Mr. Renwick, it is the opportunity for public questions. I know you've already made a statement and asked a couple of questions, but would you have any additional questions, sir?
Thank you, Chair. No, I'd just like to thank the committee for their consideration. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, sir. Lindsay, is there anybody else on the call other than Mr. Renwick? All right. Thank you very much, everyone. There's no closed meeting. And the next meeting for us will be next Tuesday. With that, thank you very much for attending this evening. And we will see you next Tuesday, and have a great week and a great weekend.
There
Take
is a
care.
public meeting next
Sorry?
Tuesday. There is also a public meeting next Tuesday before the regular meeting.
Okay.
Please
Thanks
make
very
note.
much.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks very much, everyone. Take care.
Good night.